This month is going to be a bit of a rush because I'm going away this weekend, but I went on a bit of a simulation game spree, finished hunting some robots and bought a 3D printer, so let's talk about that instead. So first, I bought a load of simulation games. Some of them I actually already had and I just decided to start playing this month, but I bought a load because they had a sale on Steam. So I'm just going to give you some quick thoughts about each of them. The first one I tried was PC Building Simulator, which was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I like building computers. It was cool. There were some issues with it I had in the sort of can't think how to describe it. It just gets a bit samey after a while. It is very much just, you do an order, someone says, build me this computer, or fix this computer, and you basically just doing the same thing to every single one after a while, and it's fine. I enjoy it. It's kind of relaxing in a way, but it's a lot of the same stuff, and after a while it just gets a bit tiring. And then there's a lot of little issues with it. There's loads of little bugs. Loads of weird decisions that they've made. Some of the times when you take a contract, they'll ask you to put in special cables. You can't put in custom cables unless you have a modular power supply, even though you can just get cable extensions. But that means that if you don't do that, you fail that request, which lowers your score. But if you do it, you have to replace the power supply, which costs money, and half the time they haven't budgeted for that, which means you lose score. So you just can't win. And then there's also stuff where, if you get given a contract with a time limit, if you miss the time limit but still fulfill the contract, they just don't pay you, and you lose score. And it makes no sense to me. I've given you what you wanted, it was just late, so I could understand a penalty. Yeah, that's fine. But you don't get a penalty. You not only lose the money, you don't get paid, you lose the parts that you've spent money on, and you lose reputation for doing it. It's just baffling to me why they would make that decision. And then there's just loads of little bugs where sometimes I'm realising I'm being vague, but there's loads of little things. So sometimes it'll be plugging a cable in, and sometimes it'll be like running a test. And it'll work, and then it won't work, and then it will work. And I can understand that that's part of the game, but the issue I've got is in the situation where it's you've run a test on the game and then it works and it doesn't work and it does work, that would say that there's something wrong with the computer. I have no idea how you're supposed to work that out though, besides taking everything apart and putting it all back together again, which I did do and still didn't work out what the issue was. I don't understand. I feel like the game sort of doesn't tell you how to work out what the issue is to fix it a lot of the time. Sometimes it gives you an error code which you can use to work it out, but other times it doesn't, and I have no idea what you're supposed to do in that situation. But the game also doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do, so. And then there were times when it was there was one of them where the guy wanted me to replace his fan. So I replaced his fans, but he wouldn't let me fulfill it because I'd taken one of his fans out and put a new fan in, and it's yeah, because he wanted me to replace his fans. But you can't replace his fans, you have to give him his old fan as well. And it's well, I can't replace his fan and give him his old fan because there's not enough space. So I don't know what the game wants from me there. There's just loads of little issues like that sometimes, and it just all get a bit much in the end, and I just kind of fell off and stopped playing. I remember I just turned it on one day, and I was do I really want to play this? Just no. I just turned it off straight away. It was a shame, because I was really enjoying it up until that point, but it just got to be too much. The next one I played was Overcrowd, which is fine, but it doesn't have a campaign at all. At least, not that I could tell. And it feels strange. I remember moving around the map. It just didn't feel right. I realise I've not got a huge amount to say about this, and it doesn't sound like I've made a lot of sense, but I didn't play this for very long because I just did not like how it felt. It just did not feel good to play. And with my simulation games, I want a storyline. Not even necessarily a storyline exactly, but a campaign, put me in a map, tell me to do a thing, and I'll do the thing. But when it's just build whatever you want on your own, I'm okay. I'll maybe do that once and then go, okay, that was it. And I won't carry on. I have no urge to continue with that point. Sometimes if I really enjoy the campaign of a thing, maybe I'll want to do that, but it's not my thing. I really want a campaign in my games, and without one, I just fall off very quickly. The next one was Poden Craft, which seems like it's going to be cool when it's finished, but it isn't finished yet. So, I enjoyed what I played. I think the main issue I've got with it is that, the way you discover new potions is by, you put your ingredients in your cauldron and, stir it and stuff, and it moves across a map. And it's a cool idea, but I have no idea where anything is in the map. And I don't know how you're supposed to know where anything is in the map. You can make informed guesses after a bit once you know, vaguely where some other stuff is, but it wasn't enough for me to like actually work it out, and I don't like that much guesswork, which just kind of puts me off. I liked what I played, but I'll maybe go back once it's actually finished, but for now I'm done with it. 100 Days was probably the favourite of the ones that I bought. It mixes like simulation stuff with puzzle mechanics, which I wasn't expecting, but it was fun. Like, I enjoyed it, I just wasn't expecting it to be like that. You sort of get given tasks to do, and a grid, and each task takes up space on the grid, so you can't always do all of the tasks, and it's about rearranging the stuff on the grid to fit best. And like, that's kind of cool. And then on top of that, there's the more simulation stuff. So it's like choosing different grapes to go in different places. It's a game about making wine. And then like pressing it and storing it and all this sort of stuff. It was interesting. It's got like a story, but the story just sort of happens, and there doesn't seem to be any control from you. Besides, like, you do your tasks for the day, the next day starts, sometimes there's story, sometimes there's not, carry on. You have like no influence over it. And like, this is all fine. But what really confused me is they also wrap the story up very quickly, and it feels like they put like no time into the story, so it feels like, why have it at all? You move to this town and get a vineyard, start doing your stuff, and then partway through it, you get a newspaper article written about you, someone doesn't like that, and then a couple of weeks later, the person doesn't like it, tries to smear your name, and then a couple of weeks later, they go on holiday, and then a couple of weeks later, you have managed to like take over the entire town, and that guy's got like sent to prison, and the last bit takes place over the course of like 2 bits of the story. The last section goes from, I'm not describing it very well. There's lots of story. There's like a first act, a second act, and then the third act is like comparatively like a single paragraph. One day wraps up the entire rest of the story. So the first 2 parts of the story are spread out over the course of about, I think it is actually over like 100 days that the story takes place. I might be wrong, but it feels like it is about. The first 2 acts of the story take place over, say, the first 90 days, and then the third act of the story takes place in the last 2 days. The final day is just, and then everything was fine. Like, the day before is, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, my friends have all left me, and the day after is, everything is fine. There is no threat anymore. I have solved all my issues, and it's just, okay. Like, it was very abrupt. And, like, a lot of stuff happens completely without your input. In that, like, the character you are playing will learn things without the player knowing about it, and then go and solve the issue without the player knowing about it, and you will only hear that they have fixed it. It's really weird. I don't know if maybe I missed something, but it was very strange. Besides that, though, it was fun. I played through the story bit of it, and then I started playing a bit more, and then I ended up losing an entire year's worth of grapes because I didn't do something when I was supposed to, and I didn't realise. And then I was like, that I don't like that. And then I just didn't feel like going back to it after that. I mean, I like the game. I would like to play more, maybe, but I don't think I ever actually will. And the last simulation game I got was Megaquarium, which, it turns out, is made by the same people who made Big Pharma, which I also really liked. So, it probably works out that I really like this one as well. I've actually wanted to get this for ages and never did, and now I finally picked it up and I really enjoy it. I will say that it's not, like, perfect. It's got some weird stuff about it. It's about running an aquarium. So, like, you'll be making a fish tank, and then you put, like, a heater on the fish tank if it's for tropical fish, or a cooler on the fish tank if it's for cold water fish, and a filter on the tank. And that's fine. And you have to keep the water at the correct purity, so that's what your filter's for, and at the right temperature, so that's what your heater's for. That's fine. Sometimes you'll have those on, everything will be fine, and then a couple of days later, your water purity will just go down. And sometimes that'll happen because, like, a fish has grown or something, and that's not what I mean. I mean, in this situation, it just goes down for seemingly no reason. But then, when that happens, adding another filter to the tank doesn't fix it. It just seems to be a bug. Or, like, putting a filter on the tank is supposed to raise it by, like, 40 points. I don't know really how the points work, but, like, 40 points of purity better. But it'll raise it by, like, a single %. So you'll have one first filter that raises it by 90 points. That'll be 73 out of the 75% you need. And then you'll put another filter on that will raise it by another 40 points, but that'll only take you to 74%. And, like, that clearly can't be right. So it feels like it's a bug. But it's happened frequently enough that it's becoming an issue for me. Then there's another issue where you can move stuff around your aquarium. Like, once you've built it, you can move it around if you want. And that's cool, except if you use the move tool, then click off the move tool is still selected for some reason, and you have to click off it twice. So you have to click the move tool, use the move tool, then click off the move tool twice to be able to not move things again. Otherwise, you'll just start moving stuff around your aquarium. And I've done that a few times, and it's really annoying. I don't know why it happens, but it's infuriating when it does, because sometimes you'll just like place something in a random place and have to spend ages trying to fix it. And it's just annoying. Especially because like the heaters and the filters that I was talking about before, you can put those remotely using like pump. If you move a pump, it breaks the link. So if you do that by accident, you have to reset the link every single time. It's just annoying. There's certain things where you can't place certain items without being in specific situations, which makes it harder to be prepared, which is just a bit annoying. Like, sometimes I just want to put something somewhere and then grab it later, but I can't do that. I have to make sure it's in the correct position straight away from when I build it, and it's just like, it's a little bit frustrating. It's not like the worst thing, but I would like it better if I could do that. The last one that really bothers me is you have to get stars. And you get stars by people coming to your thing and looking at your fish, and then they give you a good star if they like stuff and a bad star if they don't. If you get a bad star, it lowers your score. And that's fine. But your score also just lowers over time anyway. And sometimes it's just really difficult to get it back up again. Like, there was one I did yesterday where I needed 1,100 points or something to win the level. No, it was 1,000 points. And I kept getting to like 990 points. And I'd be like almost there. And then the day would roll over. And then my score would start rolling back down and like tick down by nearly 100 points. And then I'd have to just wait. And the reason it bothers me so much is because there's not really anything you can do about it. Like, your score will get back up to that point, but you just have to wait for it to get back up to that point. Because there's nothing else you can do. Like, you could do more to your aquarium. But if your aquarium is already right, just having to sit there to wait for their score to tick up is just kind of annoying, because it can take like 5-10 minutes, and it's just pointless. I've already won, essentially, but you're just making me sit here and wait before you tell me. It was really annoying in the situation because there was two things that I had to do. One of them was make over $1,200 a day, and the other was have a score of 1,000. And I kept doing either of them, but not both at the same time, and it was just a matter of waiting for the game to time them both correctly so the level would end. Like, granted, I could have spent more money to put more stuff in my aquarium to make it speed up, but I shouldn't have to do that. I've already fulfilled both of these things, but because I've not currently fulfilled both of them at the same time, because the game decides to tick both of them down randomly, I have to just wait now. So that's kind of annoying. Besides that, I like it, but quite a lot of the missions are just reach a certain score, and then it's getting a bit tedious. A lot of the game is just place everything and then wait. It's like, well, there's other things I could be doing with my time than just sitting here waiting. Other than simulation games, though, I've still been playing Elden Ring. Elden Ring's really good. But I also finished Horizon Forbidden West. Now, I've not got a huge amount to say about that, but what I will say, though, is that I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good game. It's not perfect, but it's really good. It has a lot of bugs, which were like kind of frustrating. One bug that bothers me consistently, it's not like game breaking or anything, but it was just consistently annoying, is that there's like a weird audio bug where the voices will like echo. You know, like when you're in an enclosed room and it echoes. It's supposed to be like that, but there's like very hard cut-offs for when it'll happen. So like instead of it being like a gradual thing, you'll take like 3 steps outside and you'll be fine. But then you'll walk like into the doorway and it'll immediately happen. And it's so loud, not really loud, like overbearing. It's a very overbearing effect. And the thing that really gets me is that like there's a cutscene in, God, what's it called? I want to call it Free Heap, but I feel like that was the place from the other game, wasn't it? It's the starting area of the Osseram, like where their town is. There's a bit where you're having a conversation with a guy right near the start of the game. And he is like stood in the doorway of a building, and you are stood outside the building. And you're talking to him. But every time it cuts to the different person talking, the effect switches on and off. Because you're stood outside, so it's not on for you, but he's inside, and it is on for him, even though he's talking outside. Like, he is speaking out into the world. But they've still put the echo effect on his voice. And it's really, like, overbearing, and it doesn't sound right. It doesn't mesh with the world properly. It sounds like a guy shouting in an amphitheatre while you're having, like, a normal conversation with him at the same time. Like, the entire world is happening, but there's just a guy in an amphitheatre talking at the same time. It's very strange. It doesn't feel right at all. That happens a lot, though. because it'll also happen like when you're going through a gorge, or literally anything seems to enclose you in like a small thing like a tent. Like they put the same like echo effect on everything, and it's really annoying, to be honest. I understand what they were going for, but it's so heavy. It's so heavy-handed the way they've done it. I know, I can tell it's just a bug, but there's a lot of little things like that that really bother me. There was an issue I was having where some of the cutscenes didn't work properly because they're in-engine cutscenes that are done, in real time. And the pop-in from models, like the actual model pop-in, not just like textures, but the actual model pop-in, would happen like after the camera had moved past. So you'd be supposed to be getting like this big like sweeping landscape shot, but what you'd actually get is like a kind of flat plane, and then partway through trees would appear. And it was just like kind of bad. I think you can actually see some of that in the video I did. It's just sad because it was really fun and I really enjoyed it, but it just feels like it needed more time. It feels like it could have done with, another 6 months maybe. Just more time to polish up what they had, because I enjoyed a lot of it, but it's not right. In terms of like how the story ends, it very clearly sets up a sequel, which is fine, but it feels like sort of like it lets down this game. This game kind of resolves in that you solve the issue, but in the other game, you solve the issue, and a sequel is set up, but not really with your knowledge. Like, the player knows, but Aloy doesn't know. Aloy is like, I have beat this, and then Silence disappears and sets up the sequel, right? And you find that out as the player in the cutscenes and stuff, but Aloy doesn't know. So Aloy as a character thinks everything's finished. And then between the games, she finds out that there's issues and goes off to fix them. Like, that's how that is left. In this game, you literally beat the final boss, and then immediately find out that there's another problem, and is like, oh, okay. There's no real catharsis. There is no time to relax. There is just straight ahead go. And that would bother me less if we could actually just go straight ahead, but we can't. It's going to be, how long was it between Zero Dawn and Forbidden West? Like 4 or 5 years? So it's going to be at least that amount of time again? I don't know, because I like it, but it just kind of feels bad for this game. I don't know. I just want something, and I didn't get what I wanted from the end of the game. Like, I enjoyed it, but I just didn't get it. In terms of other stuff, like, the last upgrade that you get, I'm being kind of vague on all of this, because I always am. The last upgrade that you get is really cool. I really enjoy it. I wish I'd either got it earlier, or I'd waited to clear the world until after I had it, because it trivializes a lot of the movement and a lot of the, traversal stuff. Basically, the entire early game, or a lot of the game, to be honest, would just have been easier if I'd had this earlier. So the way I play games is do all of the side content and then the main stuff. But if I had done all of the main stuff, I would have been in a way better position to do all of the side stuff. And I realise that's kind of obvious. It's kind of redundant, my statement. But usually, the upgrades that you get are either nice to have or unlock new space. Whereas this one trivializes a lot of the earlier stuff. So it kind of feels like if you're gonna go and do everything, wait until the very end of the game to go and do everything, because it makes it so much easier. And then I did turn off the triggers so that they didn't do the resistive stuff, and I enjoyed the game way more without them. I will admit, it did feel a little bit strange. I did kind of miss them, but it was like I missed them the first time I shot the bow, every time. And then the third and fourth time, I was like, nope, it's a better idea that I took these off. I didn't have the same issue. Basically, the second that I turned it off, I didn't have the issue with my wrists anymore. It's just not for me. I like the idea of the resistive trigger stuff, but I think in execution, I kind of hate it. The game's cool, but it's definitely got flaws, and I wish it had had more time. Because we're getting patches to fix stuff, but I'm kind of sick of getting patches to fix stuff. I don't want patches to fix stuff, just release a fucking not broken game. I don't blame the developers for doing this. I blame the publishers. I always blame the publishers. It's always the publisher's fault. There are times when I've made games and released them, and they've not been perfect, and I've had to fix bugs. But these are literally things that I didn't find. I cannot believe that they released this game without noticing the incredibly bad texture popping or the audio echoing, because it's so prevalent. Because it's so prevalent. There's bugs that people will find, and then there's bugs that are so obvious that they just occur naturally, frequently. That's the stuff where it's I don't want to release a game when it's like that. There was a bug in one of my games where you could walk through one of the walls. If you position yourself correctly, you could literally clip through it, and I just had no idea it was there. I never actually fixed that, to be honest. For one thing, it didn't bother me that much. It didn't really ruin the game. It was fine. Like, that sort of thing is like, this is a bug I just did not find. And I could fix that, but the player has to put themselves in a specific situation for it to occur. Like, they literally had to go into a bathroom, get around the bathtub, and then push themselves against the wall, and you would clip through into the other room. And the issue there is that I've made my walls way too thin, and like, I can fix that. Like, that's something I know how to do, but it's also something where you have to go out of your way to put yourself in a specific situation to do it. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about, obviously. Like, I'm talking about the stuff where, like, you're having a conversation with, like, a story important character, so it's part of the main storyline. You have to do it, and the audio sounds terrible because they're echoing and you're not, and it doesn't make sense for the world. Like, that stuff is stuff that I would want fixed before a game comes out. There's another little thing which is very similar to this, which is just, it always bothers me. I don't really know if you can fix this, but it has always bothered me, where in cutscenes, I'm talking more in general than specifically in Horizon at this point, but in a lot of games it does it. It does it in Final Fantasy a lot. There will be bits in cutscenes where the camera will like focus on a character, but as it's focusing on the character in this cutscene, they'll be clipping through their own clothes, or their arm will be like clipping through stuff. And I'm like, I get why that happens. If it's the player character, I can forgive that, because, you know, they've got all of the different combinations they could do. I understand you're not going to be able to do that for everything, but when it's like side characters, where they have like one fixed thing, I kind of want you to go in and fix that. If it was my game, and my characters were clipping into themselves in a cutscene, especially when I've got the camera like dead on that character because like they're talking or something, I would have to go in and fix that. Like, I would have to do it because I would not feel right if I didn't. That sort of stuff bothers me. I don't know. Maybe I'm like being too demanding. I don't feel like I am. There's just like little presentation things that really bug me, that I think are really obvious and people don't fix. And again, I feel like a lot of these would be fixed if people were given the time that they need, and they're not. They're often just sort of like mandated a date and told to push it out, and like that's what they have to do. It's like I say, I don't exactly blame the developers for this. I blame more the publishers. But either way, it really bugs me. And then my last thing is I bought a 3D printer. So I will like quite often watch old Linus Tech Tips videos before I go to sleep because I just find it kind of relaxing. Not like when I'm in bed or something, but you know, like when I'm like winding down for the night, I'm just like sat on my laptop watching a couple of videos or something. Sometimes I'll watch new stuff, and then sometimes I'll just want to like chill and I'll just like put on old Linus Tech Tips videos, something like that. And I found one about a $95 3D printer, and I was like, it looks really cool. And then just on the side in my recommended videos was a video about Ender 3 Pro mods, and I ended up watching it, and it was just really cool. It was just like so cool. It was the fact that it was this printer that was printing the mods to make the printer better. And I was like that idea was just so cool to me. And I got like a little bit obsessed with it. Like, I've always really liked the idea of 3D printers, but in my head, they were really expensive and I could never do anything about it. And then I looked at this one, I ended up just looking up how much it was, and it was like less than 200 quid. And I was like, I could just buy that. Like, I have money. I could just get it. I spent some time thinking about it, and all the time I'm watching more videos on how to mod it and like different prints people have done, and I'm just like ended up having to buy one. So I got the Ender 3 Pro that I saw in that video, and a kilo of black PLA filament just to go with it. I wanted some red, but they didn't have red in stock at the time, so I got black. So I got it, and it arrived, and I was like dead excited. So I took it into kind of like, it's a conservatory, but it's also kind of a kitchen, but it's also like, we use it for like making stuff. So I took it in there and put it away, and I didn't have time to build it that day, so I just like left it there for a day. And then the day after it arrived, it went on sale on the website, and I got really annoyed. Like, I literally bought it, and the day after I got it, it went on sale. I will say though, it did turn up really quickly. Like, I bought it on the Monday, and it said it was going to take 10 days to get there, and I had it on the Thursday. It's like barely 3 days. But yeah, the day after it arrived, it went on sale. Now, luckily, the sale was only £10, so it wasn't the worst thing, and I'm not like too bothered by it. It would have been nice to keep the extra tenner, but whatever, I've got it. It's cool, it's fine. So, I spent the first day building it, and it took about 4 hours. I watched a video of a guy building it, and it took him like 20 minutes, and it took me 4 hours, and Like, it's fine. It wasn't, like, a big deal, but I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. It just took me a while because I wasn't, like, super confident with what I was doing. There were also, like, in the instructions, there were some steps that didn't quite make sense. It's, like, just pictures, and some of the pictures didn't always quite make sense what you were supposed to do, but I ended up, like I say, finding a video on YouTube of some guy building it, and that fixed any of the problems I had. It went surprisingly smoothly. I remember I had one issue at the start because the table I was trying to use to build it on wasn't great, but I managed to get past that and it was fine. Like, once I built it, we set it up, and the printer itself comes with like a load of tools and stuff that you need to build it. And it also came with some extra filament, and it came with a micro SD card and a micro SD card reader, which was just kind of nice. But the micro SD card that I've got, it came with some stuff on it already. So I just set it up, made sure the bed was level okay, which is the thing you have to do where the bed's on springs and little wheels, and you just turn the wheels to raise and lower the bed until it's in the correct position for the printer to, for the extruder to hit it, basically, and then it'll print fine. So I managed to do that the first day, everything was fine. So we stuck that on, and I printed a cat. And the cat took 6 hours to print, which was a little bit long. But it printed, and it was really cool, and it's now sat on top of my computer, and it worked great. And I was really happy with it. So I turned it off, and I moved it from where I built it, and it wasn't even like far away, it was like a couple of feet away, like if that. And I just moved it over to where I want to keep it permanently. And then I went back to it the day after, and I was like, I'm going to print something else today. Okay, so I set it up, started printing, and it just would not work. Maybe I need to level the bed again. So I tried leveling the bed, wouldn't work. Leveled it again, wouldn't work. Spent literally an hour just tweaking the bed, constantly, trying to get it to print, and could not get it to work for the life of me. And in the end, I was just too tired, and I was just like, I can't be dealing with this right now. And I left it for a day, the day after I came back, and had exactly the same issue. So I felt pretty shit, to be honest. I was like, why did it work the first day? Now I can't get it to work at all. And I spent the same amount of time, like over an hour, just trying to fix it and couldn't get it to do anything. And I was just getting really frustrated and just leaving it. I left it for another day. And then on the last day, I was like, right, I'm just going to put it back. So what I did was I took it from the place where I wanted to leave it, like what was going to be its permanent home. I took it from there and put it back to where I built it. And it worked perfectly first try. And I was like, okay. So I think what the issue is that either the place where I built it or the place where I moved it, the actual place itself, like the actual table itself, isn't level. And that's causing issues with leveling the bed. So what I could do is fix that by taking the printer apart. Not like even all the way apart, you just kind of loosen a couple of things and then retighten them in a better position. Or by trying to fix the table. But what I'm actually going to do is just replace the table completely, because I hate that table anyway. I'm just going to replace it with a better table. And like, I'm fine with that. It's a little bit more money than I want to spend. It's like 78 quid or something for the table I want. But it's the table I always get, and it's a good table. And it comes with a chest of drawers that I really like, so I'm going to use that to store all my tools. I like it, but it's a lot of money. And I'm not like super into that. But at the same time, I'm going to get it, because the table I've got now is shit. I hate that table so much. But yeah, so now it works. So I've printed not loads of stuff, but a couple of cool things so far. The box, like I said, came included with some white filament. I want to use all that up on like kind of just like random shit, getting used to printing stuff. And then once I switch over to my black filament, I'm going to use that to print upgrades for the printer. So at the moment, I've mostly printed just like little models of stuff. I printed the cat first. I printed a calibration cube. That was like actually my second successful print. I printed like there's like a big X calibration thing. You can find it on YouTube. It's like a big X that you print, and that was awful, honestly, because it's only a single layer thick, and if it fucks up, it's a nightmare getting off. Other things being multiple layers. It means that if you can get like a lever on it, it'll come up from the bed fine. So if you've got something a couple of layers high, you can peel it off from the top. If you've got something a single layer thick, you have to get underneath it to get it off, and it's a nightmare. What I ended up doing it, I managed to get a couple of the pieces off, but I had to take it into my bathroom and run cold water on it, and that, I think it like shocks the plastic basically, and that managed to get the rest of it up. I did kind of damage the bed a little bit in the process of this, but it seems to be okay now. Not the actual bed, sorry, it's got like a magnetic, I don't know, like a bed cover type thing. It seems fine now, but it was a little bit bent at first. But yeah, that went really poorly. But then I printed the calibration cube, and that seems pretty good. There's a little bit of ghosting and a little bit of like squish around the corners. But besides that, it worked fine. And then since then, I've gotten like mostly even better prints out of it. Next, I printed some cable clips. So they're cable clips to which actually snap onto the printer. Now, I said I wasn't going to print any upgrades for the printer until I had my black, but these ones are all going to be in positions where it's going to be hidden by stuff that I build later, so it doesn't really matter what colour they are. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter what colour they are anyway, but I want them in black if I can see them. Well, actually, I want them in red, but I don't have red yet. So I printed some clips, and what they do is they clip onto the aluminium extrusion and hold the cables in place so that they don't get in the way of stuff, and it's way tidier now, basically. So that was good. And then I printed a slug, and it's an articulated slug. And I love that it prints articulated, so you don't even have to like put it together or anything. It just prints interconnected and stuff. It's really cool. And it's just a little slug, and it just like, you just move it around, and it's just, that's it. Boy, it just looks cool. I printed a fox, which is pretty cool. There were some issues around the ears. Get blobbed up a little bit around the ears. I also printed the fox completely hollow, so it's a little bit fragile, but that was a choice. Besides that, I think it's actually a very good print. There are some issues with it. Like there's a couple of, I think, don't know if it's layer shifts exactly or if it's like skipped bits. It does feel like it's like skipped a couple of little sections. And I don't exactly know what the issue is with that. I think it might be to do with the filament though. So I'm thinking once I switch to the black, that might just solve itself. I think it's because of the way the filament is, it doesn't come on a spool, the stuff that came in the pack. So I think it's like snagging on itself. So I think, for one thing, that'll be kind of fixed by moving to the black, because that's on an actual spool, but also that might be fixed because once I get the black, I'm going to print a filament guide, which is supposed to work pretty well. And I think once I've got those two, that will alleviate this issue. I might be wrong, but I think that'll work. And then I printed some stuff for my wife as well. I printed a little obelisk, because she wanted one for some reason. And then I printed a little model totodile. The only issue I've got with the totodile is I scaled it down because I wanted it small, but I didn't realise quite how much I'd scaled it down, so it's very small. And I think because of that, it's lost some of the definition in the print, which these problems, like I say, kind of my fault. It might not be too bad, but in this situation it is my issue more than the printer, I think. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed using it. Now that it works, I'm really liking it. Once I switch to the black, like I say, I'm going to start printing upgrades for it. So one of the first things I'm going to print is the filament guide that I was talking about. And then there's a better spool holder that I want to print, which will like roll on a set of ball bearings to make it even smoother. Then there's cable chains where the cables as they are at the moment just kind of like dangle. And sometimes they get in the way of the bed, which like for me, it's not too big of a deal rather because I've only been doing quite small prints anyway. But if you're doing like a bigger print, it can actually like get in the way. I saw a picture of a guy who'd like managed to somehow print his cables into a print. And I have no idea how that happens, but the cable chain should fix that. Now, I've also heard that the cable chain doesn't always work, but I want to try it anyway. Then there's tool storage, so you can get stuff that, like, because it's just extruded aluminium, you can, like, slide tool storage into it and, like, get the aluminium itself to hold your tools, which is just really cool. So I want to print one of those and it'll, like, hold all the parts for the printer. And then there was, like, a really cool, like, set of drawers you can print into the printer, which I want to do as well, because that just looks really cool. And then just loads of stuff. I just want to print loads of stuff now. So I'm really excited for it. And this also sent me on a thing where I bought loads of tools to go with stuff. So I ended up spending like nearly 100 quid the other day. And I bought a load of screwdrivers, I bought a load of files, I bought some digital calipers, and I bought a soldering iron and loads of other stuff. I've always liked the idea of making stuff. And this means I might start doing. Like, I've always made stuff. I've always made like videos and games and stuff, and now I can like make physical stuff as well. And it's just cool. I just really like all this. Like, I've always liked doing stuff, and now I can do more of it. I'm trying to put it off, but I do want to spend money on upgrading my printer. And it's kind of like, if I'm going to spend money on upgrading the printer, why did I not just spend more money on the printer in the first place? And it's like, kind of just wanted this printer, but I want a better version of this printer. And there's a load of stuff that I can buy for it. One of the things I can buy is a better tube. That's it. It's just a tube that's apparently better than the one that I've already got. But then there's stuff like, you can buy a better... It's like a filament guide, kind of. It feeds the filament into the hot end for your printer. Can't remember what it's called now, but you can buy a better one of those. You can buy better bed springs, which I think I'm probably going to get those two no matter what. Then there's other stuff where, like, you can replace the entire motherboard for the printer and the screen for the printer. That's quite a cheap upgrade apparently, but it's also supposed to be really worthwhile, so I might just do that anyway. But like just for those 3 things, it'd be like 70 quid. There's a thing called a BL Touch or a CL Touch or CR Touch, I can't remember now. But what it does is it's like a little probe that you attach to your printer and it levels the bed. It doesn't level the bed. It levels the printer to match the bed. It levels like the head to match the bed rather than the bed to match the head. So you still level the bed yourself first, kind of naturally. And then once it's in vaguely the right place, you use the BL Touch and it just stays attached to the printer all times and it just levels itself at the same time every time. And that'll like correct any issues with the printer. So that's just kind of cool. And I kind of want to get one of those, but I don't really need it, but I also kind of want one. And I don't know, it just gets to the point where it's like, there's lots of cool things I could buy. And I don't really know if I want to, but I do want to, but I don't want to spend the money, but I want them. I'm trying to hold off. Maybe I'll get them as like gifts for myself or something. I think though now, the only thing that's left is my outro. So, special thanks to all of my patrons. You can join them over at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, and for $1 a month you'll get to see what I'm working on early and get exclusive roles in my Discord along with other rewards I might think of. You can also just follow me there if you want to for free, as it's probably the best place to see all of my content as soon as it's available. There's links to the Patreon along with my Discord, Twitter, Twitch, and all the other podcast platforms in the description for this episode. Finally, don't forget you can email me using podencastby@gmail.com if you've got anything you want to say. Thanks for sticking around. Bye. Special thanks to my patrons, Justin Wood, Hobbs, Scoopy Vegeta, Gunrunner, Water, and Bat. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, follow me on Twitter @Holden Gatsby, and follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/Holden Gatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to both of my channels. Thanks for sticking around. Bye.